If someone yells at you and your immediate reaction is to cry, that's not weakness. That's not being too sensitive. That's a nervous system response that was conditioned into you, probably before you even had the language to understand what was happening. Before we go any further, if this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because we're diving deep into psychology and behavior that actually matters. Psychologically, crying when someone raises their voice is an automatic stress response. Your amygdala doesn't distinguish between physical danger and emotional intensity. When someone yells, your nervous system interprets that volume as a threat. Your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. For some people, that activation doesn't lead to fight or flight. It leads to freeze and cry. Here's what most people don't realize. That response was installed early. If you grew up in an environment where yelling was frequent, your brain learned to associate raised voices with danger. Over time, that association becomes automatic. You don't choose to cry. Your body chooses for you. This is called conditioned emotional response. Pavlov's dogs salivated at the sound of a bell because the bell was paired with food. Your tears come at the sound of yelling because yelling was paired with fear, shame, or punishment. The conditioning is so deep that even when you're an adult, even when the person yelling has no real power over you, your body reacts as if you're back in that original context. There's also a shutdown mechanism at play. When your nervous system can't fight and can't flee, it collapses inward. Crying becomes a form of emotional shutdown. It's your body's way of saying, I can't handle this intensity, so I'm going to release it through tears. It's not voluntary. It's survival. Behaviorally, people who cry when yelled at often develop this response in childhood as a way to de-escalate conflict. If crying made the yelling stop, if it made the angry person soften or back off, your brain learned that tears are a tool for safety. Even if you consciously hate that you cry, your subconscious still believes it's the best option available. According to developmental psychology, children who grow up with volatile caregivers learn to regulate the emotions of the adults around them instead of learning to regulate their own emotions. You become hyper-attuned to tone, volume, facial expressions. You're constantly scanning for signs of anger because your safety depended on it. And when that anger finally erupts, your system overloads. Tears are the overflow. Here's the part people miss. This reaction isn't about the present moment. It's about every moment before this one. When someone yells at you now, your brain isn't just processing what's happening right now. It's processing every time yelling meant danger. Every time it meant you were in trouble. Every time it meant someone you needed was emotionally unsafe. That's why the tears feel disproportionate. That's why you might think, why am I crying over this? It's not that big of a deal. But to your nervous system it is. Because it's not just this yell. It's all the yells. Neurologically, your brain doesn't timestamp memories the way you think it does. Emotional memories, especially traumatic ones, get stored without a clear sense of past versus present. So when someone yells now, your amygdala pulls up every yelling memory you've ever had and responds as if they're all happening simultaneously. That's why the emotional reaction feels so intense. It's not just one moment. It's a collapse of all the moments. People who cry when yelled at often feel immense shame about it. They internalize the idea that they're too sensitive, too emotional, can't handle conflict. But sensitivity isn't the issue. The issue is that your nervous system was shaped by an environment where intensity wasn't safe. You're not weak. You're wired for protection. From a trauma perspective, this response is actually adaptive. In an environment where yelling was dangerous, crying might have been the only way to signal submission and avoid worse outcomes. Your tears weren't manipulation. They were survival. And your body still remembers that. Here's what changes everything. High-functioning, emotionally regulated people don't avoid crying because they're stronger. They regulate it because their nervous system was trained differently. They grew up in environments where conflict didn't equal danger, where raised voices didn't mean loss of safety. Their conditioning was different, so their response is different. The shift happens when you stop seeing your tears as a personal failing and start seeing them as information. Your body is telling you something. It's telling you that this intensity feels unsafe. It's telling you that your nervous system is overwhelmed. That's not weakness. That's data. Behaviorally, you can start to shift this response, but it takes intentional nervous system work. You can't think your way out of a conditioned reaction. You have to repattern it. That means exposing yourself to manageable levels of intensity in safe contexts. It means learning to regulate your nervous system in real time through breathwork, grounding techniques, somatic practices. It also means unlearning the belief that yelling equals danger. That's cognitive work. Your adult brain knows that someone raising their voice at work or in an argument isn't the same as the yelling you experienced as a child. But your nervous system doesn't know that yet. You have to teach it. Psychologically, people who cry when yelled at often struggle to set boundaries around tone and volume. They tolerate being yelled at because they believe they deserve it, or because they don't think they have the right to ask for different communication. But you do. You're allowed to say, "I can't engage with you when you're yelling." You're allowed to remove yourself from situations where someone is using volume to intimidate or control. Here's the reality. People who yell frequently are often emotionally dysregulated themselves. They use volume because they don't have the skills to communicate intensity in a regulated way. Their yelling isn't about you. It's about their inability to manage their own emotional state. But if you were conditioned to believe that someone else's anger is your responsibility, you'll absorb it as if it is. That's why this reaction is so hard to shake. You're not just dealing with the present moment yelling. You're dealing with a lifetime of believing that other people's emotional dysregulation is somehow your fault. And when you cry, part of that response is guilt. Part of it is shame. Part of it is the belief that if you were better, calmer, different, they wouldn't be yelling. But that's not how it works. Someone else's emotional regulation is not your responsibility. Their yelling is not your fault, and your tears are not a character flaw. Neurologically, the more you practice regulating your nervous system in non-threatening contexts, the more resilient you become in threatening ones. That means building a foundation of safety in your body. Meditation, breathwork, somatic experiencing, therapy. These aren't luxuries, they're reconditioning tools. You also need to challenge the narrative that crying equals losing. In some contexts, tears are the healthiest response. They're a release. They're a sign that you're feeling something deeply. The problem isn't the tears themselves. The problem is when the tears come from a place of fear and helplessness, rather than a place of emotional processing. Here's what high performers do differently. They don't shame themselves for having emotional reactions. They create space for them. They recognize that a nervous system response isn't a moral failure. And they build environments and relationships where intensity is communicated without aggression. If you know you're prone to crying when yelled at, you can prepare. You can set boundaries ahead of time. You can communicate to people in your life that yelling is not an acceptable form of communication for you. And if someone continues to yell despite that boundary, that tells you everything you need to know about their respect for you. Psychologically, people who yell and then blame you for being too sensitive when you cry are engaging in emotional manipulation. They're using your conditioned response to avoid accountability for their behavior. That's not about you. That's about them refusing to regulate themselves and expecting you to absorb their dysregulation without reaction. Here's the part most people ignore. Your tears are not the problem. The yelling is the problem. If someone is consistently using volume to communicate, that's a them issue, not a you issue. Your reaction is understandable. Their behavior is not. From a trauma recovery standpoint, healing this response isn't about never crying again. It's about crying from a place of choice rather than compulsion. It's about your tears being an emotional release rather than a nervous system hijack. That's the difference. The more you practice staying present in your body when you feel the urge to cry, the more you can start to differentiate between past and present. You can ask yourself, am I in danger right now? Am I actually unsafe? Or is my body reacting to a memory? That distinction is everything. This also means grieving the environment that conditioned this response into you. If you cry when people yell, It's because at some point, yelling was a significant part of your emotional landscape. That's worth acknowledging. That's worth processing. According to relational psychology, the people who are safe for you will not weaponize your sensitivity. They won't use your tears as proof that you're overreacting. They'll recognize that your response is valid and adjust their communication accordingly. That's what emotional safety looks like. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If someone in your life refuses to stop yelling at you even after you've communicated that it's harmful, they're choosing their comfort over your safety. That's not love. That's not respect. That's control. You can also work on your own response patterns. When you feel the tears coming, pause. Ground yourself. Feel your feet on the floor. Focus on your breath. These aren't magic fixes, but they interrupt the automatic response long enough for your prefrontal cortex to come back online. Neurologically, grounding techniques work because they pull your attention out of your amygdala and into your body. Your amygdala is screaming danger. Your body, when grounded, can send signals back to your brain that say, actually, we're okay. That feedback loop can start to shift the intensity of the reaction. It also helps to reframe what crying means. In many cultures, tears are seen as weakness, especially in conflict. But tears are a biological response to overwhelm. They're your body's way of releasing stress hormones. There's nothing weak about that. It's just physiology. Here's what changes when you stop fighting the tears and start understanding them. You stop seeing yourself as broken. You start seeing yourself as someone whose body learned to survive in a specific environment. And survival responses don't turn off just because the environment changes. They have to be gently, intentionally reprogrammed. People who cry when yelled at often have incredibly high emotional intelligence in other areas. They're empathetic. They're attuned. They feel things deeply. The same sensitivity that makes you cry when someone yells is the same sensitivity that makes you an incredible friend, partner, or colleague in the right context. The goal isn't to become someone who doesn't cry. The goal is to become someone who cries when they choose to, not when their nervous system forces them to. That's regulation. That's healing. But here's another layer most people miss. The crying response often comes with a secondary wave of emotions. After the tears start, there's usually anger at yourself for crying, embarrassment, frustration. You're crying, and then you're mad that you're crying, which makes you cry harder. It becomes a feedback loop. Psychologically, that secondary response is just as conditioned as the primary one. You learned somewhere along the way that crying is unacceptable. Maybe someone told you to stop being a baby. Maybe you saw other people get punished for showing emotion. So now when you cry, you're not just dealing with the original trigger. You're dealing with internalized shame about the response itself. That shame keeps you stuck. Because every time you cry when someone yells, you reinforce the belief that something is wrong with you. You tell yourself you're weak, you're broken, you can't handle normal conflict. But none of that is true. You're having a normal physiological response to a stimulus that your nervous system coded as dangerous. According to attachment theory, people with anxious or disorganized attachment styles are more likely to have this kind of crying response. If your caregivers were inconsistent, if love felt conditional on your behavior, if anger from adults was unpredictable, your nervous system never learned that conflict is survivable. You learned that anger means abandonment, that raised voices mean loss of safety. So when someone yells now, it's not just the volume, it's the existential threat your nervous system associates with that volume. Your tears aren't about the present moment argument. They're about every time anger meant you might lose the person you needed most. Here's what's interesting from a neuroscience perspective. The vagus nerve, which runs from your brain to your gut, is heavily involved in your stress response. When someone yells, your vagus nerve can trigger what's called a vasovagal response. Your blood pressure drops. Your heart rate changes. You might feel dizzy, nauseous, or like you're going to faint. The crying is part of that cascade. For some people, the tears come with a tight throat, difficulty breathing, or a feeling of being choked up. That's your body's polyvagal response. Your ventral vagal system, which handles social engagement and calm, shuts down. Your dorsal vagal system, which handles freeze and shutdown, takes over. The tears are your body's attempt to discharge that freeze energy. Psychologically, this is why you might feel paralyzed when someone yells. You want to respond. You want to defend yourself. But your body won't cooperate. Your throat closes. Your mind goes blank. All you can do is stand there and cry. That's not a choice. That's a nervous system state. From a behavioral perspective, people who cry when yelled at often develop compensatory strategies. They avoid conflict entirely. They people please to prevent anyone from getting angry. They overthink every interaction to make sure they're not going to trigger someone's rage. These strategies feel necessary, but they're exhausting, and they don't actually solve the problem. The problem is that you're organizing your entire life around other people's potential anger. You're making yourself small to keep other people calm. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair to you. Here's another angle. In workplace settings, crying when someone raises their voice can feel catastrophic. You're in a meeting. Your boss gets heated. Suddenly, you're tearing up in front of colleagues. The humiliation is intense, and the professional consequences can be real. People might see you as incapable of handling pressure. They might question your competence. But the reality is, workplace yelling shouldn't be normalized. If your boss regularly communicates through volume and aggression, that's a toxic work environment. Your tears are a signal that the environment is unsafe. The problem isn't your sensitivity. The problem is a culture that tolerates emotional abuse as leadership. Psychologically, high achievers who cry when yelled at often overcompensate in other areas. They work harder. They prove their worth through output. They become indispensable so that no one has a reason to yell at them. But that's a trap. Because you're still operating from the belief that if you're just good enough, people won't get angry. And that's not true. Some people yell regardless of what you do. According to social psychology, crying in response to yelling is more common in women, but not because women are inherently more emotional. It's because women are socialized to suppress anger and express sadness. Men are socialized to suppress sadness and express anger. So when a woman is yelled at, her conditioned response channels through tears. When a man is yelled at, his conditioned response might channel through aggression or withdrawal. Neither response is better or worse. They're both conditioned. They're both survival strategies. And they're both worth examining. Here's what most people don't understand about reconditioning. You can't just tell yourself to stop crying. You can't logic your way out of a nervous system response. Your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, is offline when your amygdala is activated. You're in survival mode. Rational thought doesn't have access. That's why the reconditioning has to happen at the body level. You have to teach your nervous system that intensity doesn't equal danger. And you do that through repeated exposure in safe contexts. You practice having difficult conversations with people you trust. You practice staying in your body when you feel activated. You practice grounding techniques until they become automatic. Neurologically, this creates new neural pathways. Over time, your brain learns that raised voices don't always lead to harm. Your amygdala starts to calm. Your prefrontal cortex stays online longer. The crying response becomes less automatic and more optional. But here's the challenge. Most people don't have access to safe context for this kind of practice. If the people in your life are the ones who yell, you can't practice with them. You need a therapist, a coach, or a support group where you can do this work without real consequences. Psychologically, there's also a grief component to this healing. You have to grieve the version of yourself that believed crying made you weak. You have to grieve the relationships where you weren't allowed to have boundaries around tone. You have to grieve the childhood where yelling was normal, and you had no power to stop it. That grief is important, because it's the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. You can't skip it. You can't bypass it. You have to feel it. From a relational standpoint, the people who truly care about you will adjust when they learn that yelling triggers you. They'll lower their volume. They'll take breaks when conversations get heated. They'll prioritize your sense of safety over their need to be right. If someone refuses to do that, they're telling you where you rank in their priorities. Here's another layer. Some people cry when yelled at not because they're scared, but because they're angry and they've been conditioned to suppress that anger. Tears become the only acceptable outlet. You can't yell back. You can't defend yourself. So your body releases the intensity through crying. Psychologically, this is especially common in people who grew up being told that anger is bad, that nice people don't get mad, that expressing frustration is disrespectful. Your anger didn't go away. It just learned to disguise itself as sadness. If that's you, part of your healing is learning to access your anger directly. Not to yell back, but to recognize that anger is information. It tells you when a boundary has been crossed. It tells you when something is unfair. And it gives you the energy to advocate for yourself. Behaviorally, people who cry when yelled at often struggle with assertiveness. They can't say no. They can't push back. They can't hold their ground in disagreements. Because assertiveness requires staying regulated in the face of potential conflict. And if conflict makes you cry, assertiveness feels impossible. But assertiveness is a skill. It's not a personality trait. It's something you can learn. And it starts with small moments, saying no to low-stakes requests, expressing a preference when it doesn't matter much, disagreeing about something minor. You build the muscle in safe contexts, so that when it matters, you have the capacity. According to cognitive behavioral therapy, you can also challenge the thoughts that accompany the crying. Thoughts like, I'm making a scene. Everyone thinks I'm weak. I shouldn't be this upset. Those thoughts intensify the shame, which intensifies the crying. If you can catch those thoughts and replace them with something more neutral, the emotional intensity decreases. Instead of, I'm so weak for crying, try, my body is having a stress response. Instead of, I'm ruining everything, try, this is uncomfortable but it's temporary. The reframe doesn't stop the tears, but it stops the spiral. Here's what's true. Crying when someone yells at you doesn't make you less capable. It doesn't make you less intelligent. It doesn't make you less worthy of respect. It makes you human. It makes you someone whose nervous system responded to their environment in the only way it knew how. And if you're reading this and thinking, but I need to fix this, I need to stop crying, ask yourself why. Who told you that crying is unacceptable? Who benefits from you staying silent when you're upset? Who profits from you being easy to intimidate? Because the truth is, your tears are inconvenient for people who want to control you through volume. Your tears make them uncomfortable. They'd prefer you to just take it. And when you don't, when you cry, they blame you for being too sensitive instead of taking responsibility for their aggression. That's manipulation, and you don't have to accept it. Psychologically, healing this response is about reclaiming your right to have feelings, your right to be affected by how people treat you, your right to set boundaries around what kind of communication you'll tolerate. None of that requires you to stop crying. It requires you to stop apologizing for it. From a nervous system perspective, you'll know you're healing when someone yells and you can stay present. You might still cry, but you're not dissociating. You're not frozen. You're in your body, feeling your feelings, and making conscious choices about how to respond. That's regulation. Not suppression, not avoidance, regulation. And here's the final piece. If someone came to mind while reading this, if you thought of a specific person who yells at you and makes you cry, pay attention to that. That person is showing you something about the relationship, about the dynamic, about the respect, or lack of it, that exists between you. You deserve to be in relationships where people manage their intensity, where conflict doesn't require volume, where you can disagree without feeling unsafe. If you found this helpful, leave a comment sharing your experience. And if you want more content on psychology, behavior, and nervous system healing, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. We're going deep every single time.